Good morning, everybody. I believe it's time to get started. Anybody lose electricity yesterday, or we left our lights on? John 21, 4 through 7. But when the morning was now come, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples knew not that it was Jesus. Then Jesus saith unto them, Children, have ye any meat? They saith unto him, No. And he said unto them, Cast the net on the right side of the ship, and ye shall find. They cast therefore, and now they were not able to draw it for the multitude of the fishes. Is my mic in the wrong spot, Brad? Am I okay? Okay. Therefore, that disciple whom Jesus loved saith unto Peter, It is the Lord. Now when Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he girt his fisher's coat upon him, for he was naked, and did cast himself into the sea. Once again, Jesus is there, and the disciples didn't recognize him. Jesus is always present, and yet so many times we see him as absent. Do we too look straight at the Lord and have no idea that it is him? Jesus is here. Do we see him? I know we can't see him as a man, but we must be able to see his presence. As we have done in the past, let's tell the Lord good morning. Are we ready? Good morning, Lord. Thank you. Psalms 139 is our, before we do that, praises and prayer requests. We have prayed. It was good to see him Wednesday night. I guess America turned 250 years old yesterday. Any other prayer requests? What's that? All right.
I lost a cousin last night, John.
All right. Guess your dad's doing all right? Oh. You guys be able to, there was a flag flown over the Capitol that was flown in Rhonda's dad's memory, or not memory, honor. Sorry about that. Anything else? All right, our memory verse, Psalms 139, 1 through 14. Psalms 139, 1 through 14. O Lord, thou hast searched me and known me. Thou knowest my downsetting and mine uprising. Thou understandest my thoughts afar off. Thou compassest my path, and my lying down are acquainted with all my ways. For there is not a word in thy tongue, O Lord. Thou knowest it altogether. Thou hast beset me behind and before, and laid thine hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high, I cannot attain unto it. Whither shall I go from thy spirit, or whither shall I flee from thy presence? If I ascend up into heaven, thou art there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there. If I make the wings of the morning, and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand shall hold me. If I say, Surely the darkness shall cover me, even the night shall be light about me. Yea, the darkness hideth not from thee, but the night shineth as the day, and darkness and the light are both like unto thee. For thou hast possessed my reins, thou hast covered me in my mother's womb. I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. As a class, if we could, let's read verses 7, 8, and 14 together, if we could, please. 7, 8, and 14. Whither shall I go from thy spirit, or whither shall I flee from thy presence? If I ascend up into heaven, behold, thou art there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there. I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. Thank you. We're going to stay on the same subject we've been on the last couple weeks. Where is Jesus? I thought it was going to be only one lesson, and Job entered the picture. Then it made me wonder if we think the Lord is absent, is it because we do not have the real identity of who he is? Even when I read these last chapters in Job, I know I do not have the same picture in which Job saw the Lord to be. So what am I missing? We read the first 15 verses of Job 38, and the questions the Lord asked Job just keep getting more and more complicated. We studied some about the kings of Israel and Judah earlier, and some did evil in the sight of the Lord. They worshipped other gods, sacrificed their sons to these gods, oppressed and killed their neighbor. God punished them for it. I have not read or will read where God is accusing Job of doing any of those evil things. Job did not understand why the events were playing out in his life the way they were. I do not believe his friends truly understood either. Job had a little too much pride in his life. I think we all do. I'm not sure I totally understand why Job was tormented the way he was. Satan gained nothing by it, so why did God let Satan torment him so? Why didn't Job's friends receive the same treatment as Job? Were they somehow better than Job? We have the answers in the later chapters of Job, but the answers still do not give me a complete understanding. There had to be something different about Job. I would say even better. My conclusion can only be it is so God and Job could have a closer relationship, not have one that was preconceived to be. Let's turn to Revelation chapter 3, verses 19 through 21. Revelation chapter 3. Revelation chapter 3. (19 through 21). And as many as I love, I rebuke and chasten. Be zealous, therefore, and repent. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him, and he with me. To him that overcometh will I grant to sit with me in the throne, even as I also overcame and am set down with my Father in the throne, in his throne. I also want to read Proverbs 25, verse 4, Proverbs 5, Proverbs 25, verse 4. Proverbs 25, 4. Take away the dross from the silver, and there shall come forth vessels of. Take away the dross from the silver, and there shall come forth a vessel for the finer. Also, Isaiah chapter 1. Isaiah chapter 1, verses 21 through 25. How is the faithful city become an harlot? It was full of judgment, righteous lodged in it, but how murderous. The silver is become dross, thy wine mixed with water, thy princes are rebellious, and companions of thieves. Everyone loveth gifts and followeth after rewards. They judge not the fatherless, neither doth the cause of the widow come unto them. Therefore thus saith the Lord God of hosts. Therefore I'm going to start over. Therefore saith the Lord of hosts, the mighty one of Israel, I will rise, I will ease me of mine adversaries, and avenge me of mine enemies. And I will turn my hand upon thee, and purely purge away thy dross, and take away thy tin. Verse 25 again, and I will turn my hand upon thee, and I will purely purge away thy dross, and take away thy tin. That is not the exact verse I was looking for, and it didn't seem right not reading just verse 25, although that is what I want. There was sin in the camp. God is going to clean it up, and silver as silver is refined. Let's read Psalms 12, verse 6. Psalms 12. Psalms 12, verse 6. The words of the Lord are pure words, as silver tried in the furnace of the earth, purified 7 times. If you recall, there are also an illustration in Jeremiah 18 of the potter to mold the clay. Could it be Job wanted more than his friends did? I'm speaking of a closer relationship with the Lord. Was Job willing to go through these trials and come out closer to God than when he started? I also think of King David. He strove to be close to the Lord. And the way I see it, some of the events flowed out in his life. It would have been easier if he hadn't tried so hard to be close to the Lord. He seemed to have gotten into a lot of trouble trying to do that which was right. When he did, let me reread that, I'm sorry. He seemed to have gotten into a lot of trouble trying to do that which was right, and when he did do wrong, he seemed to get into more trouble than the kings that did evil. Maybe I should not have put those thoughts down on paper to be part of my lesson, but I was thinking them, so in they went. Every person that has a close walk with God has a different experience to get to that same destination. We need to be careful of pride, for that will destroy that relationship. I'm going through lots of trials. That makes me really spiritual. I don't think so. Sister Sue, her life is a breeze. I must be more spiritual than her. I don't think so. Spiritual. I suppose I equate those words of obedience to spiritual. It appears to me Job thinks the same thing. The more obedient you are to the Lord, the more spiritual you are. I think we both got it wrong. Yes, obedience is important, but love needs to come first. I do not recall anywhere in Job where it says Job loved God. Love changes duty to desire. We have read the Bible verse many times. It is not wise to compare ourselves to ourselves, which brings us back to Job 38, comparing ourselves to God to really see who we are. Let's read Job 13, verse 3. Job 13. Verse 3 and 18. Surely I should speak to the Almighty and desire to reason, and I desire to reason with God. Verse 18. Behold, now I have ordered my cause. I know that I shall be justified. Job 23, 1 through 3. Job 23. Then Job answered and said, even today is my complaint bitter. My stroke is heavier than my groaning. Oh, that I know where I might find him. Oh, that I might even come to his seat. I would order my cause before him and fill my mouth with arguments. 9 and 10. 8. Behold, start in verse 8. Behold, I go forward, but he is not there, and backward, but I cannot perceive him. O the left hand where he doth work, but I cannot behold him. He hideth himself on the right hand, but I cannot see him. But he knoweth the way that I take. When he hath tried me, I shall come forth as gold. And verse 11. My foot hath held his steps. His way have I kept, and not declined. Job is looking for the Lord. He wants to present his case before him. I have kept the law. I am a good man. You have no right in treating me this way. His friends have turned on him, for they think he has broke the law in some way. God wants Job and his friends to learn that there is more than just keeping the law. Job knows who God is, but not until chapter 8 does Job recognize who he is. Job 42, 1 through 6. Job 42, 1 through 6. Then Job answered the Lord and said, I know thou canst do everything, and that no thought can be holden from thee. Who is he that hideth counsel without knowledge? Therefore have I uttered that I understood not, things too wonderful for me, which I knew not. Hear, I beseech thee, and I will speak. I will demand of thee, and declare thou unto me. I have heard of thee by the hearing of the ear, but now mine eye seeth thee. Wherefore I abhor myself, and repent in dust and ashes. We started reading Job 38 last week, trying to answer the questions as we went along. I was having trouble with the first questions, and they seem only to be getting harder. Even with these questions, I can see Job had a lot of knowledge. I think he could have been a winner at the game of Jeopardy. In Job 38, 1 through 3, God graces Job with his presence and gives him a chance to present his case. But there are a few questions God wants I need you to answer first. God's first question, where were you when I created the heaven and the earth? And what did you do to give it order? I had the bright idea, why not see if these questions could be answered that God asked Job? I have also drawn another conclusion. Just by reading or even answering these questions does not give us a closer relationship with the Lord. I have asked myself many times, what does it really take? I think it starts with desire, and that desire changes the way one reads the Bible and gives us a different perspective to these answers. When whomever is reading the Bible, do you allow God to deliver the words and not the reader? Even when we read the Bible, do we forget He is here? It is not as if we are reading about Him. It is as if He is reading it to us. Just because He is here, does not mean we get the benefit of Him being here. We can let the Lord read the Bible to us, or we can read it for ourselves, and it becomes about God. There is a big difference. Right now, I would like to read Job 38, and I would like to get a volunteer. Anybody like to read Job 38 for me? I lost the microphone. Do you mind reading the whole thing? Is that all right? Can you read the whole thing, or do you want to break it down? Job 38.
Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, Who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? Gird up now thy loins like a man, for I will demand of thee, and answer thou me. Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding. Who hath laid the measures thereof, if thou knowest? Or who hath stretched the line upon it? Whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened? Or who hath laid the cornerstone thereof? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shut up for joy? Or who shut up the seas with doors, when it brake forth as if it had been issued out of the womb? When I made the cloud the garment thereof, and thick darkness a swallowing band for it, and break up for it my decreed places, and set bars and doors, and said, Hitherto shalt thou come, but no further, and here shall thy proud ways be stayed? Hast thou commanded the morning since thy days, and caused the day spring to know his place, that it might take hold of the ends of the earth, that the wicked might be shaken out of it? It is turned as clay to the seal, and they stand as a garment. From the wicked their light is withholden, and the high arm shall be broken. Hast thou entered the springs of the sea, or hast thou walked in search of the depth? Have the gates of death been opened unto thee, or hast thou seen the doors of the shadow of death? Hast thou perceived the breadth of the earth? Declare if thou knowest it all. Where is the way where light dwelleth? And as for darkness, where is the place thereof? That thou shouldest take it to the bound thereof, and that thou shouldest know the path to the house thereof. Knowest thou it because thou wast then born, or because the number of thy days is great? Hast thou entered into the treasures of the snow, or hast thou seen the treasures of the hail, which I have reserved against a time of trouble, against a day of battle and war? By what way is light parted, which scattereth the east wind upon the earth? Who hath divided a watercourse for the overflowing of waters, or a way for the lightning of thunder? To cause it to rain on the earth where no man is, on the wilderness wherein there is no man, to satisfy the desolate and waste ground, and to cause the bud of the tender herb to spring forth? Hath the latter rain a father? Who hath begotten the drops of dew? Out of thy womb came the ice, and the hoary frost of heaven. Who hath gendered it? The waters are hid as with a stone, and the face of the deep is frozen. Canst thou bind the sweet influences of the Pleiades, or loose the bands of Orion? Canst thou bring forth Mazzaroth in his season? Or canst thou guide Arcturus with his sons? Knowest thou the ordinances of heaven? Canst thou set the dominion thereof in the earth? Canst thou lift up thy voice to the clouds, that abundance of waters may cover thee? Canst thou send lightnings, that they may go, and say unto thee, Here we are? Who hath put wisdom in the inward parts? Or who hath given understanding to the heart? Who can number the clouds in wisdom, or who can stay the bottles of heaven? When the dust groweth into hardness, and the clods cleave fast together, wilt thou hunt the prey for the lion, or fill the appetite of the young lions? When they couch in their dens, and abide in the covert to lie in wait, who provideth for the raven his food? When his young ones cry unto the God, they wonder for lack of meat.
Thank you. I think we are ready for verse 16 of Job 38. Job 38:16. Hast thou entered into the springs of the sea, or hast thou walked into the search of the depth? When I see the word spring, I think of bubbling water coming up from the ground. I suppose God is asking Job, where does all that water come from? If you think about it, why doesn't water ever get used up? Don't we consume it all the time? Don't we consume it? We have consumed it for thousands of years. It is not alive. It does not reproduce itself. The total amount of water on the earth stays almost exactly the same over time. Its depth. What do you know of its depth? Not until recently has man been able to figure it out. Its depth is almost 7 miles deep, and from that depth it can crush just about anything it wants to. From what I read, it is easier to go into space than explore the ocean's bottom. Job 38:17. Have the gates of death been opened up to thee, or hast thou seen the doors of the shadow of death? Gates. If the gates are open, does that mean you can come and go as you please? If that is the case, that answer would be a solid no. Anybody want to help me out? Job 38:18. Hast thou perceived the breadth of the earth? Declare it if thou knowest it all. I can look up a figure in a book and tell you of its width, but understand its size to make something of my own, that size I cannot. What keeps it in orbit or keeps it from falling as a rock to the ground? It does it because God created order. Tell me what you know, gravity and such. Did you design it? Job 39:19 through 21, I think, are all about the same thought. Job 19 through 21. Where is the way where light dwelleth, and as for darkness, where is the place thereof? That thou shouldest take it to the bound thereof, and shouldest thou the path to the house thereof? Knowest thou it because thou wast born then? Knowest thou it because wast then born? Or because the number of thy days is great? Where is the way the light dwelleth? I'm not sure I even understand the question. If you make it a statement, it would be, there is a way where light dwelleth. Yes? Anybody? Okay. So what is the way where light dwelleth? Then there is darkness. Once again, this may be a different light. than the light before the sun. Genesis chapter 1, verses 3 and 4. Genesis chapter 1. Verses 3 and 4. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. And then we're going to read 14 through 16. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. So God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And we'll skip down to verse 19. And the evening and the morning were the fourth day. God didn't create the sun until the fourth day. Could God yet again be speaking of Jesus, wherein is the way? John 14:16. John 14:16. 14:6 rather, sorry. John 14:6. Jesus saith unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. We need to turn to 1 John now. Jesus is the way, and in 1 John, Jesus is the life, the light. Without light, there is no life and total darkness. I was going to start in verse 4, but it's probably best to start in verse 1. John chapter 1, verses 1 through 10. Would anybody like to read those verses for me? John chapter 1, verses 1 through 10. John chapter 1, verses 1 through 10. John. John 1, okay. 1 through 10, thank you.
John 1, 1 through 10, that which we was from the beginning, which we have heard, which we have seen with our eyes.
Where are you at?
John 1, 1 through 10. 1 John 1.
No, sir. John. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John.
You said 1 John. Sorry, my joke.
My fault. I'm getting tongue-tied this morning.
That's all right, you're good. 1 John 1.
No, sir. John.
Oh, John, I'm sorry. John 1, 1 through 10.
Yes, sir.
And in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. There was a man sent from God, whose name was John.
Read the verse.
The same came of for the witness to bear witness of the light, that all men through him might believe. He was not the light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made of him, and the world knew him not.
Thank you. Let's read Job 38, 19 through 21 again. There is a way where light dwelleth. Where is the way where light dwelleth? And as for darkness, where is the place thereof? That thou shouldest take it to the bound thereof, and thou knowest the paths of the house thereof. Knowest thou it because thou was born when? When was tongue, yeah. You guys read what I'm not saying. Or because the number of the days be great. Could you remind me again, just was it when you were born? When was I born? God asked Job. Job 38, 22 and 23. Job 38, 22 and 23. Hast thou entered into the treasures of snow, or hast thou seen the treasures of hail, which I have reserved against the time of trouble, against the day of battle and war? Hast thou entered into the treasures of the snow? God made it so it would snow in the wintertime. It could just have easily have been hail. God created beauty where destruction could have been. Hail is a just reward for the wicked. We mentioned last week that some of these verses could be telling of future events. This could yet be another one. Revelation chapter 11, verse 18. Revelation chapter 11, verse 18 and 19. And the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come, and the time of the dead that should be judged, and that they shouldest give reward unto the servants and the prophets, and to the saints, and to them that fear thy name, small and great, that thou shouldest destroy them which destroy the earth. And the temple of God was opened in heaven, and there was seen in the temple the ark of the testament, and there were lightnings and voices and thunderings, and an earthquake and great hail. And then 16, verse 21. Revelation 16:21. And there fell upon man a great hail out of heaven, and every stone about the weight of a talent. And men blasphemed God because of the plague of the hail, and the plague thereof was exceedingly great. Job 38:24. By what way is the light parted, which scattereth the east wind upon the earth? I don't even know if I'm going to try. Anyone want to help me out? Anybody have any idea? By the way is the light parted, which scattereth the east wind upon the earth. I cannot answer that. Job 38, 25 through 27, I think is all one sentence, and I think verse 28 is part of this thought. Job 38, 25 through 28. Job 38, 25. Who hath divided a water course for the overflowing of waters, or the lightning of thunder, to cause it to rain upon the earth wherein no man is, or the wilderness wherein there is no man, to satisfy the desolate and waste ground, and to cause the bud of the tender herb to spring forth? Hath the rain a father, or who hath begotten the drops of dew? I guess the easy answer would be God. God causes it to rain. God is the reason. God is also the reason for the laws of nature, for it to work. By the way, can you give life? Job 38, 29 through 30. Out of whose womb came the eyes, out of the hoary frost of heaven, who hath gendered it? The waters are hid as with the stone, and the face of the deep is frozen. Once again, let's read 31 through 33. Canst thou bind the sweet influence of Pleiades, or loose the bands of Orion? Canst thou bring forth Mazzaroth in his season, or canst thou guide Arcticus with his sons? Knowest thou the ordinance of the heaven? Canst thou set the dominion thereof in the earth? We are getting to the stars. God is telling Job about the stars and asking him if he had any input on the placement of these stars. Once again, tell me what that you did. Pleiades, also known as the Seven Sisters. It is located 444 light years away in the constellation of Taurus, in which several of these stars are seen with the visible eye. I also looked up Mazzaroth. Mazzaroth, defined in a biblical Hebrew term that appears in the book of Job, it generally refers to astronomical constellations. It is because it is used to describe the vastness of the cosmos and God's absolute control over the universe. I also read, whether it is true or not, I do not know, but interestingly enough, it speaks of it as the 12 signs of the zodiac, which traces the sun's path across the sky throughout the year. I read where these 12 signs tell of the story of redemption. To give the first and the 12th, Virgo, representing the virgin birth of Christ, and Leo, representing the lion of the tribe of Judah, to reign forever. There was a lot said, and I always thought of the zodiac as something a Christian should steer away from. But if it is telling of future events of the coming of Christ, I see it in a different light. I am not sure of how to find this as fact. Satan always seems to mess things up, to worship creation instead of the Creator. 2 Kings chapter 23, verses 1 through 6. 2 Kings 23. I think this is Dawn's favorite king, right? 2 Kings 23, 1 through 6. And the king sent, and they gathered unto him all the elders of Judah and of Jerusalem. And the king went into the house of the Lord, and all the men of Judah and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem with him, and the priests and the prophets and all the people, both small and great. And he read in their ears the words of the book of the covenant, which was found in the house of the Lord. And the king stood by a pillar and made a covenant before the Lord to walk after the Lord, and to keep his commandments and his testimonies and his statutes with all their heart and with all their soul, to perform the words of this covenant that were written in the book. And all the people stood to the covenant. And the king commanded Hilkiah the high priest and the priests of the second order and the keepers of the door to bring forth out of the temple of the Lord all the vessels that were made for Baal and for the grove and for the host of heaven, and he burned them without Jerusalem in the fields of Kidron, and carried the ashes of them unto Bethel. And he put down the idolatrous priests for whom the kings of Judah had ordained to burn incense in high places in the cities of Judah and in the places round about Jerusalem. This is the part. Then also he that burned incense unto Baal, to the sun, and to the moon, and to the planets, and to the host of heaven. And he brought out of the grove of the house of the Lord without Jerusalem, and to the brook Kidron, and he burned it to the brook Kidron, and stamped it into small powder, and cast the powder thereof upon the graves of the children of the people. King Josiah saw the error of the ways, and began to worship the Lord. Nothing pleases Satan more than being able to deceive us and turn what is truth into a lie. We are not done yet with this chapter. God keeps peppering Job with questions. We have several more chapters to go. He is showing Job he is very limited in what he can do. Even his time has limitations. God has so much. God has no such limitations. As we continue, one needs to think about why God is asking these questions. These next verses appear to be able to answer with a simple answer of yes or no, or a who, but they are more likely an essay with much more thought and complex to answer. If we start in verse 36 with the who, that would be God. Job 38:36. We'll probably have to rewrite some of this next week. Job 38:36. Who hath put wisdom in the inward parts, or who hath given understanding to the heart? I think this verse is part of a bigger thought. It starts in verse 34 and maybe ends in verse 38. It has something to do with wisdom. 34 through 38. Canst thou lift up thy voice to the clouds, and the abundance of water may cover thee? Canst thou send lightnings that they may go and say unto here we are? Who hath put wisdom in the inward parts, or who hath given understanding to the heart? Who can number the clouds in wisdom, or who can say in the bottles of heaven? When the dust groweth into the hardness, and the clods cleave fast together. I want to go to Proverbs. I want to read some other verses before we go on. Proverbs chapter 8. Let's read Proverbs 8, verses 22 and 23. Proverbs chapter 8. This is speaking of wisdom. Proverbs chapter 8. Proverbs 8, 22 and 23. And the Lord possessed me in the me is wisdom, all right? And the Lord possessed wisdom in the beginning of his way, before his works of old. I was set up from everlasting, from the beginning, forever the earth was. In the chapter 1, or verse 1 in chapter 8, doth not wisdom cry, and understanding put forth her voice? This whole chapter is dealing with wisdom. Wisdom always was and always will be with God. Without wisdom, there is chaos, a complete state of disorder. I want to read the whole chapter of Job, I want to read the whole chapter of Proverbs, chapter 8. I can't even read what's wrote. I'm sorry, guys. Who hath put wisdom in the inward parts? God gave us wisdom to even have the ability to think sometimes. I think we get busy sometimes and let our mind wander when we should be paying attention, or maybe we only process part of what we being said. Our mind has much capability, more capability of anything else God created, and yet it is extremely limited when you compare it to God. I don't know what to do with Proverbs 8. Do we just read it and go back to Job, or we do a little investigating of its words? How we doing? Proverbs chapter 8. We really don't have time to read it today, so good as time as any to stop. Anybody have any comments or thoughts before we close out today's class? Let's see, no. Would you like to close in prayer for us, Don? Would that be all right?
Yeah, I have a comment.
You, okay, go
I
ahead.
think we have our own wisdom. We better check it against the words we've been reading this morning, or we'll think something is false. Our own wisdom is worthless. It don't line up with what God's been given about wisdom is. And that's one of the problems with man. We think we know.
There's a Bible verse that says something about that, isn't there?
Man's ways are right. The way I think is right. Really, doesn't line up. You show it does, and you're right. If it don't, then there's a condition of heart. It's an observation.
All right. Anybody else? You'd like to close this out in prayer, please?
Father, help us to open ourselves up and not lean on our own understanding. Help us not just keep our eyes in the book, but Lord, may the book grip our hearts. God, our families need you. God, our families need you. God, I need you. In Jesus' name.
Thank you.